All right, this assignment's going to deal heavily with positioning, specifically the position property, and we're also going to talk a little bit about floats, but mostly this is about position. So this is an example, the final example of what it is that we're going to try to do. And if you take a look, you'll see that this ends up, you'll see later actually, that this is a header that you're looking at right now for an article. And as you scroll up, you'll notice that that header was full screen and it has a background image that is fixed. So the background image stays in place while the rest of the element moves up. And then you'll see that as it moves up, it uncovers down here at the bottom, it uncovers a navigational toolbar that essentially always stays at the bottom. And what we've talked about in the past so far is that, you know, I showed you how you can make something that is sticky at the top. But this time we're going to talk a little bit about how you can put something down at the bottom using the same principles. And the reason that you might want to have something at the bottom instead of top is, you know, perhaps that it's more mobile friendly. A lot of people find that whenever they're using a single hand, it's easier whenever they're grabbing the bottom of their phones to be able to touch things down at the bottom of the screen. And so a lot of websites have moved their navigational tools down at the bottom. So that's just one way to look at implementation for your navigation. And you'll notice that when we start on the page, you don't see it, but as you scroll up, it becomes visible and it stays put, and everything else moves up. Okay, and so this is the article. This is the page that we're going to be styling. So let's take a look really quickly. If I scoot this over, all right, we're going to take a look at what this looks like so far in brackets. All right, and I'm going to do this side by side for a moment. And so what you can do to follow along if you you know, aren't sure how to get here is after you've downloaded the set of files that I provided for you, it's called Pen05. Even though I'm not currently in CodePen, you could use CodePen for something like this. You would have to use different imagery than what I'm using, but I'm using brackets, so even though it's called Pen5, that indicates that it's a sort of like an exercise. You could use any code editor that you want to do this. Okay, so what you would do in brackets is you would, if you look in this left panel, right, as a reminder, you would click here where it says, in my case it says Pen5, yours is probably going to say something else. It could be the last project that you worked on. Anyway, you're going to click on that little, where the little drop down arrow is, and you're going to say open folder, and you're going to go find where you downloaded the Pen5 folder. And so in this case it was on my desktop, right, and then I chose Pen5 right here and clicked open. And what it did is that then it loads up this as the project. All right, and so it shows me that I've got an images folder, and inside of that it shows me all the images that I gave to you. All right, because we're going to use those later. And right now we just have index.html. I don't have a CSS file in there that's linked up. We'll have to do that together. Okay. All right, so let's take a look at the structure before we get too far with this. Okay. So if you'll notice on the left, we have a full doc type with the full HTML document, right? Because we're in brackets, it's showing all of that. We also have a head. And inside of the head, I've called this in the title, I've called it Pen5 Mimic the Positioning. And it also comes with this meta tag that makes it mobile friendly. All right, so don't worry about that just yet. And later we're going to put inside of this head, and remember, don't confuse head with header. Those are two different things. Head is something that is a required part of any HTML page. Header is not. So inside of the head, later we're going to put a link to the style sheet. But let's just go through this for a moment. The body tag is, as you hopefully recall, is everything that you see inside the viewport right here. Okay, and so you'll see right here that the first thing that we're starting with, if I collapse some things, let's just collapse the main things. If I collapse things, we have two top level elements. One is the nav, and it has an ID of global nav attached to it. And what that means, what global nav means, is that it's going to be the global site navigation. So that would be, say, on every page. And if you look, like let's take a look and see what's inside of nav global nav. All right. Looks like we have an A tag, and inside of it, it has an image. And then there's an unordered list, and inside of that it's got 3 links. One's for Facebook, one's for LinkedIn, and one's for Twitter. Well, I don't see that here over on the page, but if I scroll up, that's what this sticky, I'm going to refer to it as a sticky menu. That's what this sticky menu is down here. All right. Even though it's at the bottom of the page, it is actually the first thing that we see in a linear format inside of this HTML page. And the reason that you might want to actually have that at the very top of the page is for accessibility reasons, so that if a person who is blind or a person using a screen reader or something needs to access the menu right away, it'll be at the very top of the page so that the screen reader will hit that first. There's something that we haven't really talked about yet, and I'm not going to get into it just yet, but speaking of accessibility, whenever somebody is using a screen reader and they would have navigation at the top like this on every page, it might become redundant. And so there's also a thing that you can put down. It's called skip nav. If you ever hear someone talking about skip nav, it means that it's to skip the navigation. It would be a link that would jump down to the main section of the content so that you don't have to listen to this list of links being read every single time you go to a new page. I'm not going to get into that now. I just wanted to mention it briefly so that you're aware if you ever see something called skip navigation, that's what it's about. But anyway, so that's why I would want the navigation at the top, so that it would be easy for somebody to find using a screen reader. And also the other thing is that it becomes it's set up in a linear format, and it makes it really easy for search engines to see all of these links as well. Okay, so um, you'll notice that this sticky menu is actually at the bottom visually, although it's linearly at the top in the HTML. That just means that we have to write a position rule for this nav to send it down to the bottom. All right, and if you remember, if you were to think about which one that might be, because this doesn't actually move, it stays in place as we scroll, that would be a fixed position. So we would give this ID of nav global a position property and tell it to be fixed. Okay, and there's more to it than that, but these are just some ways for you to visually start to break this information down. Okay, and then we can go in as we get into it a little bit more deeply, how you get this anchor link with the image to stay over here on the left, and how we get this unordered list over here at the bottom to go over here to the right. Okay, and then after that, what we've got here, I'll collapse this nav, and we'll go into main. And main is everything else that you see on the page, right? So it's an article that we're reading because this is sort of like a blog, right? If you were to hover over this icon right here, you'll see that it says, as the tooltip, it says go to blog, right? So the idea is that it would go to a blog. Right now these links are not active. They don't really do anything. They just refresh the same page. But I went ahead and made them links so that we can style them as such. All right, and so this is like the branding that you would always want to be up here at the top on whenever you first go to the page. And then the idea is that, well, as you scroll down, that branding goes away, but then the branding shows up persistently down here in the bottom navigation. And so you'd never want to really lose your branding. Okay, so that's important. Anyway, but that's what, if you look at this header, let's take this header and dissect it. So inside of the header, what we've got first off is a nav tag, and because it's navigation, it's a single link that says that's an anchor link, and inside of it is an image, and it's this picture right here called contribute. And it's actually what it is it's a logo type.svg, so it's a logo, but it's an SVG file. That stands for Scalable Vector Graphic. That means that it's a vector base, it's not raster based. The difference is that raster images are picture based, like pixel based, and you can't scale those up over their native size. A vector graphic, however, because it's a line drawing, it can scale as small or as large as you want it to without actually losing any kind of clarity or quality. And so that's the other benefit is that very often the file size for a scalable vector graphic is going to be usually a lot smaller than it would be for a pixel-based raster graphic, like a JPEG or a PNG or something like that. Okay, and so the trick though that you're going to find is that if you notice this this graphic that says contribute, all right, it's white and it has transparency behind it. Same is true for this. It's the same picture file. The problem that you're going to discover that might be confusing, and the same actually is going to be true for these other SVGs for Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter, is that they're white graphics. And so if you were to just open the page, you know, without actually, like for instance, if I took this right now and I did this, and I looked at an example, you might look at this and go, wait, there's nothing on the page. But in fact, there are things on the page. It's just that they're white graphics. And I'll show you in a minute how we can deal with that. But for now, I'm just going to close this. And we're going to go back here. All right. So if we go back here, let's take a look at this again. All right. And we look at what is in the header. Let's go back to looking what is in the header. So you'll see that this up here, this little nav is what this contribute button is. All right, it's wrapped in a nav tag. And then below that, you see that we've got a div that is organizing two things. It's organizing the H1, which is the title of the page, branching out, becoming a freelancer. And then we've got a paragraph that is the byline. It says by Jane Doe. And you'll see that this paragraph also has an ID attached to it called Byline. That means that we can target it and tell it to do whatever we want so that it maybe doesn't behave like the other paragraphs, right? And that would be important. Also, it's wrapped in a div because then that way we can position this however we want. If we want to position this H1 and a paragraph as a group, then we need to wrap it inside of something that can position that. All right, and so that's the header. And then that means that if you were to take this, take a peek at this whole header, that whole header you'll see is, when we start off, is going to be 100% of the height of the viewport, right? So it'd be 100 VH. And the other thing too is that because it is on top of something that is fixed, that means that we have to give it either a position of relative or absolute. See, because it scrolls, it can't be fixed. So either the header would need to be a position of relative or it would need to be absolute so that it would scroll. Okay, so that's something else that's important. And then we would have to do that because also we'd need to give it a z-index to make sure that it's on top of this sticky navigation down here, right? So that it starts off on top, and then as we scroll, the sticky navigation becomes revealed and everything else scrolls below that sticky navigation, right? And then we've got our article. So this is actually a little bit, it's not simple, it's not crazy complicated, but it's also not simple either. It's a little bit complicated. And so we're going to kind of walk through how to do all of that stuff. And then as you scroll, you'll notice that we've got our article, the rest of our article, the content, it's wrapped in a section tag. And you'll see down here in the section tag here, in fact, let's collapse the header that's inside of this article so that we're not faced with looking at all that extra information. And then you'll see we've got an H2, all right, and it says, so you want to break into freelance design, here are some helpful tips. And then below that we've got an H3, and you'll see that it's styled a little differently over here. It's got a slight orange, like a peach orange cast, color cast, and then we've got paragraphs that behave like normal paragraphs, and then there's some images in place, and then there's another heading level If you look here, all right, so there's that heading level. Again, another paragraph, another image, all right, and you'll notice that that image is set so that it's large and it's not floating or anything like that. And then if you keep going down, the section ends, but then we still have, and let's collapse the section so that you can clearly see the different pieces and parts of this article. So right here, as a reminder, we have the article. The header is that full page thing, right? It's that this is the header, okay? And if we scroll up, we get to the section that includes the H2s, the H3s, basically the content of the article. And then at the very bottom, we have a footer. Okay, we have a footer that is also, in fact, I can scoot that over. We have a footer that comes after the section, and what that contains is the contributor information. So it says about the contributor as an H3. And you'll notice also that this H3 has a different style than this H3, for instance. That is orange. This is sort of this magenta color. All right, and then you'll see that the contributor has an image attached to it, and then it's got another paragraph, okay? And then the footer ends, all right, and then that's the end of the article. You'll also notice that even though that's the end of the article, it still has to come up high enough so that it basically clears this this sticky navigation. If I didn't have enough padding at the bottom of, say, it could either be the bottom of main or the bottom of the article or something, then this would actually get sort of trapped right about here. And I wouldn't be able to scroll any higher because this would just sit right on top of it. So that means that I would also need to pad the container element that this footer is in. So I could either pad, as I said before, the bottom of the article or the bottom of main to make sure that it still has a scrollable area that can come up high enough that I can always read that information. Okay, so this is how we're going to start. And now that we've talked a little bit about it, we can just get started. And you're going to look at the way that it begins, which is this, right? If you take a look at this, and you might go, oh my gosh, this is, how do I even begin to get from this to this? Okay, well, we're going to walk through how you can start to organize your thoughts, organize your structure, you know, basically get your images in order. For instance, one of the things you could do is just on this page anywhere, if you were to open that up in Chrome, you could right click, you could say inspect, and you could get the HTML over here on the left or on the right or wherever it happens to open up for you. And right now we don't have CSS attached to it, but if you just wanted to be able to see what's happening a little bit better with these images, what I could do is I could just come over here and temporarily on the body, I can click this little plus rule, like this little plus symbol, and I can create a new body rule, and I can say background, and I'll just say red or something. And then that way you can actually see where those SVG files are, those white SVGs. And as you remember, what I said before is that we've got these graphics and then you can see right through them because they're transparent, but because they were white with a white background, it looked like nothing was there. But if you just temporarily turn the background to some other color, you'll be able to see what you're dealing with a little bit better when it comes to these SVG graphics, okay? And you're not going to want to keep this red, obviously, but this will at least help you see what's going on with these SVGs. All right, so in the next video, we're going to actually get started with hooking up your style sheet and just getting some basic styles in place.